I talk a lot about being a man of your word. That if you master this one skill, everything in your life will get better. Everything. Because if you say it is done, and it is done, like it's actually done, that's a game changer in every aspect of your life. And not just for you, but for everyone in your life. If you can be trusted to the point of they know that if you say it, it's done, well, that's the highest honor. And that's the type of man you need to be. If you say that you're going to get into shape, you get into shape. If you say you're going to complete a task, you're going to complete a task. You need to be known as a man of your word. But it also means that you need to, it's twofold, really. A, be very conscious and cognizant of what you give your word to. Because also, especially as parents, I find, we get a bit flippant with our word. Oh, yeah, sweetie, I'll fix that later. Or I'll do that later. Or we can do that tomorrow. Or whatever. It's, unbelievably important that if you say it, it is done. If you say something to your children, you need to follow the fuck through. And not only if they just remember, but you have to remember. And I will be the first one to raise my hand and say that is really fucking hard to do sometimes. Because in the moment when you're busy, when you're doing something, to remember what you said you would do. Or just to get a moment of peace and be like, yeah, we'll do that tomorrow, we'll do that later, or we'll do that when I finish this. Do not say something unless you mean that you will do it. Do not say something unless you know that you are actually going to follow through. But it seems that needs to be a concept that needs to be discussed. And I always find, there's so many of these days, where I'm like, mind-boggled that we even need to have a discussion on them. Like, being strong, fit, and healthy is a really good idea. But people want to argue for their limitations about being strong, fit, and healthy, which is just crazy to me. Like, what honest-to-God argument can you have against looking after your health? There is no rational argument that can legitimately be put up to, hey, maybe we should be healthy people. And yet people constantly want to argue for their limitations. They want to constantly argue that it's not that bad, that it's not that unhealthy, that it's not necessary to exercise, to eat good food, to look after yourself. People want to argue for the stupidest things these days. And it's the same with keeping your word. It is a base requirement. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that it's easy, but how are we going to have an argument that it's not a good idea to keep your word? That if you say something, you follow through on it. That should just be a universally accepted statement. That if you say something, you should follow through on it. That being a man of your word is a positive thing. But the secondary reason why it's so important is that it makes it easier when times are hard, is the simplest way of phrasing it. That you have pre-decided that is what is happening. And I'd use exercise or nutrition or these kinds of things as the example. That if you make it a generalist thing like, hey, I want to be a little bit healthier, I want to be a little bit fitter, I want to eat a little bit better. In the crunch moment, when, temptation or comfort or ease is on the table, you are going to fall back into that every single time. You're always going to fall back on what's easier, what's simpler, what's, more enjoyable in the moment. That's just human nature. But if you've made a really firm decision, if you've gone, this is who I am, You give yourself these strong codes to live by, which include, I have said I'm doing this, therefore it is done. I'm a man of my word. It makes it easier to stick in those moments when things are uncomfortable, when temptation would be easier, when it would be simpler to do the other things. Because, well, you already decided. So when I come back to that, discipline is freedom. And people want to say it's restrictive and it holds them back. And I'm like, no, it makes your life simpler because you don't need to think about it. You don't need to question the decision. You don't need to wonder and go, oh, should I do this today? Should I do that today? Is this a good choice? It's already been decided. It was decided long ago when you had the motivation. When it was simpler, when you were in a place where it was a simple decision. Discipline frees you from having to make hard decisions because it's already decided. You decided long ago. Now you're just following through. There's no thought process. There's no questioning. There's no, is this a good choice? No, it's just done. End of story. And when you can wrap your head around that point, that the discipline is freedom, and then you define yourself that way, life gets a lot simpler. Not easier. And too often people conflate the two, that they think making life simple makes it easy. No, you still have to make hard choices. You still have to do the right things. You still have to show up the right way, but it's simpler. You don't have to question those decisions. You don't have to wonder and worry about it. You just do. And that's the end of it. And that's where you get the true benefits of it. That's why I talk about that there are no days off. And we do this every single day. And part of the reason is it constantly trains your discipline. But part of it's also that it's simpler. I don't need to question if I'm working out today. The answer is already a resounding fuck yes. I decided over 600 days ago that that was what was happening. I don't need to question if I'm going for a weighted walk today. That has already been decided. These decisions have already been made. They were made when my motivation was high, when I decided that I was no longer happy with my life and I wanted to show up as a different man. Therefore, I follow through. And I have rules about who I am as a person. You know, it comes back to that one, it's a bit of an old school thing these days, but like those bracelets, and it'd be like, oh, what would Doctor Who do? Or what would Chuck Norris do? Or what would Jesus do? Or these things like this. Well, what would the greatest version of you do? I always find that's a really powerful question to ask. What would the greatest version of you do in this situation? The greatest version of you is a man of his word. The greatest version of you is strong, fit, and healthy. The greatest version of you shows up no matter what his feelings say. The greatest version of you follows through no matter what. These are very, very different questions and allow you to tap into becoming that version of you. And the more times you, go back to that version of you, the more times you think about what would the greatest version of you do in this situation, and then you do it, the more you're aligning your thoughts and your habits and your actions with being that version of you. And over time, those decisions become easier and easier and easier until they become, you don't even have to have a thought process. As I said, over 600 days ago, I decided that this is who I am. And so every day for those 600 days, I have worked out. I have done a weighted walk. I have done my 4 liters of water. I have done these things because I decided long ago. Now I don't need to ask the question. I don't need to worry about my feelings. I don't need to worry about what else is going on. All I need to know is that it is required and it has to get done. It's not always easy. As I said, it's not always easy, but it's simple. It's simple and straightforward. The decision has already been made. I just need to show up and enact it. I just need to show up as the greatest version of myself. I just need to show up and, win the day. It's much, much simpler when the decision's already made. It's much, much simpler when I don't have to worry about the future choices. I just show up and do what I said I was going to do. I just continue to be a man of my word. And that allows me to win. because I don't need to ask the question. I don't need to worry about where the outcome is. I don't need to worry about my feelings or my thoughts or where I'm at in life. No, it has already been decided. Therefore, it is done. And that is the greatest, greatest gift that you could ever give to yourself, your friends, your family, your children, all those who love and adore you. You just show up and go, what would the greatest version of me do in this situation? And you just start demanding greatness.